So the next thing we want to discuss is spreadsheeting for retirement. And many of you may be a spreadsheeter yourself, which is perfectly fine. What we do, which is a little bit different, is a couple of things. One, first and foremost, we don't want you to drop off your information, us create a spreadsheet for you, and in other words, you're not involved in the process. At the same token, if you are a spreadsheeter, we don't necessarily, we think it's great that you're doing it, but we don't necessarily look at yours either. The unique thing that we do is we collaborate with you. So in that collaboration, you may see things differently than we do. So we'll have a much deeper understanding of what it is that's most important for you. So let me talk about how we spreadsheet. And again, this is something that we do. We call it unique possibilities. It's looking at all the possibilities that's unique to your retirement plan. And we can run several different iterations of this. So I'll be excited to get deeper into that, but let me just give you the broad, big picture overview of what that spreadsheeting looks like. So on the front end, we would say we want to start with your retirement money. And that's the first thing that we look at on this spreadsheet. In other words, what assets are you comfortable saying, yes, I think we'll be spending that for retirement? Oftentimes, that may be a 401k, it may be your Roth IRA, maybe just a taxable brokerage accounts. Definitely, we're not using the value of the house available for retirement in this scenario. We're not using perhaps a 529 college savings plan. We're not using an emergency fund. So these are specific assets that have been earmarked for retirement. So that's the first thing we look at. The second thing that we look at is Social Security. And perhaps we assume, if you're not working, that you start that at 62. Oftentimes people want to look at that. We can look at the differences between 62, 65, 67, whatever's most applicable to what you're trying to do for your own retirement plan. So certainly get that Social Security income in there. If you have pension income, we want to consider that. Oftentimes the pension income, a lot of times they're static. They may not have cost of living adjustments, but certainly if you have a wife that's been in the school system, then maybe they have a 2% or so cost of living adjustment. We can certainly take that into account. But we start with those retirement assets, and then we start looking at income sources. Social Security, what does that look like? Pension income, what does that look like? Last but not least, we look at, do you have any desire to have any income sources such as part-time work? Have many people that phase into retirement. Maybe they work for the first few years part-time or half-time. If you do, we want to spreadsheet that because that will have an impact on your overall retirement plan. So again, we start with retirement assets, then we document all of your income sources. So if we get all those income sources in there, at the end of the day, that will lead us into what does this retirement picture start to look like for you. These last columns, which is the part that's really exciting for most of you, is we start looking at the spending. What is your empirical spending in retirement? In other words, what do you live off of? So we want to have a good sense of not only how long these assets are going to last, what the income sources that are going to be that's already coming in, but what do you normally spend on a monthly or annual basis? So we start talking about that. And this will lead us into one of our next concepts, which is the curves of retirement. And what we will find by spreadsheeting your retirement plan is a couple of things. You're going to be one of three tracks, if you will, for retirement planning. You're either going to be on a green curve, a blue curve, or a red curve. As you can imagine, the red curve is one that we're going to continue to tell you, hey, you really need to continue working. In that scenario, you're running out of money way too soon. So the red curves really don't work very well, and that's very evident when we run the spreadsheet for retirement. But on the other hand, if we find that you're on the blue curve or perhaps the green curve, very exciting to say, you know what, you are prepared to retire. We look at several different runs of that spreadsheet based off what's applicable to your individual circumstances, and then we go from there. The last thing I would say on the spreadsheeting, particularly for this column 3. If we find out that you are on a runaway green curve, in that scenario, we're going to talk to you about maybe the first 10 or 12 years of retirement, particularly those earlier years while you're young, you're still healthy, you still feel like going. We want to make sure on purpose, as much as possible, that perhaps you can get away with spending a little bit of extra during those first few years of retirement and not put the retirement plan at risk. So this is how we're going to approach your retirement plan by spreadsheeting.